Welcome to Ask the Trade Pros, the show where a couple of trade guys talk about trade stuff. We're here to answer your questions about your HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and other home systems, so you can keep your home running smoothly. I'm Todd.
And I'm Jordan. As trade pros, we try to stay up on the newest industry standards involving regulations. We've been hearing a lot lately about the transition to a new class of refrigerants called A2L starting in January 1st, 2025.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we know so far of A2L refrigerants, the industry changes that are coming in next year related to A2L, and what that will likely mean for homeowners. A2L refrigerants are part of a new generation of low global warming potential, or GWP. What it's designed to address is the environmental concerns related to traditional high GWP refrigerants like HFCs, which is hydrofluorocarbons. A2L refrigerants have a GWP typically in range of 150 or lower, which is significantly lower than many common HFC refrigerants.
So HFC is what we're currently using as a refrigerant. So 410A, all the current car refrigerants, 134A, those are all HFCs.
A2L refrigerants are mildly flammable but have significantly lower flammability compared to the higher flammability A3 refrigerants. This makes A2L safer to use in comparison. However, their flammability does require specific considerations in terms of system design, installation practices, and safety protocols to ensure safe handling and operation.
Well, let's break that down a little bit for our loyal listeners on what we mean by A2L and flammability and all that. Our current refrigerants, HFCs, were chosen to go to over the old HCFC refrigerants like R22 to remove chlorine. The chlorine had been eating away at the ozone. Well, the new refrigerants were good in that aspect, but they have a high global warming potential. And what that meant is they trap methane into the air, and methane traps heat, and therefore they warm the earth much faster than the older refrigerants, or way faster than the newer ones that are coming out. In choosing this new refrigerant, though, they do have this new flammability classification. In A2L, the A stands for non-toxic. So the existing refrigerant, 410A, is A1. It is non-toxic, and it has 1, which is a no flammability rating. The new refrigerant is going to be A2L. The A, again, is non-toxic, so it's not harmful to you. It does have a 2 flammability rating, which raises it higher on the scope. That's still below some other items, which will have a 3 or higher rating, that are extremely flammable. This is just mildly flammable. And then the last part, the L, is just the rate at which it burns. So you can burn low velocity, you can burn high velocity, which is, say, a bomb, explodes out. The low burning velocities, the way the flame burns out, which is relatively safe versus something that expels like a flamethrower or something of that nature. So that's kind of the basic of what these standards meet in terms of flammability. We've moved from level 1 to level 2 in this new refrigerant.
So some of the examples of that A2L are already out today. So R32 is one of those that's been used in Europe for some time now?
Almost a decade now.
Yeah, so this is nothing to be concerned or scared about. I mean, there's a lot of, your car may be running off of A2L. If you have R1234YF, that is classified as A2L as well. R1234ZE is used in chillers, which has been used for a while.
The main concern on these refrigerants, we have a lot of consumers that are coming at us and they've worried, they've heard rumors that it's got propane in it or that it's, extremely flammable. It is slightly higher on the flammability rating than the old refrigerant, but it's not so much as gasoline or something of that nature. Where that's going to come into an issue in handling it in large quantities, not say the quantity you're going to have on your home, but in a quantity where you're transporting a whole truck of it across the country.
So now that we've touched on A2L and what that means, let's talk a little bit about what it does mean to homeowners. So a lot of manufacturers across the board right now are already producing this new A2L equipment for your HVAC system. With that being said, by January 1st, I believe, of next year, all new equipment is going to be required to have this A2L refrigerant. Now, depending on the manufacturer, I think most manufacturers across the board have landed on R454B. I think one manufacturer is going to be using the R32, which we talked about a few minutes ago. So that doesn't mean that they're phasing out what we currently use, which is the R410A 410A, they are doing what's called a phase down. So I believe, and Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they're saying by 2037 is when they're going to phase down. Do you know about that process?
Yeah, most manufacturers have at this point ceased manufacturing 410A equipment. They're moving over to the 454, the 32 equipment, except for a couple of replacement parts. January 1st, 2025, 410A equipment can no longer be manufactured. It can still be sold if it's remaining in stock through the year of 2025. The refrigerant itself, as you said, still has a long phase down process. This compares to the refrigerant R22. I know a lot of homeowners knew that was banned, that was discontinued, they had to get rid of it, you couldn't do anything. On 410A, they are not phasing it out yet. There's no set timeline on phase out, it's a phase down. What that means is the manufacturers are going to make less and less of it each year, so obviously it's going to get more and more expensive to get, but you will still be able to service your current existing 410A units for decades to come.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So with that being said, really the only changes that are going to be coming is, since it is a A2L classification, it's going to be some slight changes with the equipment. So there's going to have to be built-in leak detectors in your indoor coil and outdoor coil. So if it does detect a refrigerant leak, it's going to turn on your blower motor to dissipate that refrigerant through the air. It will run, depending on manufacturer, I believe that Carrier is going to run for about 15 or 20 minutes with just the blower going to dissipate that. And then if it continues to detect that leak, it will continue turning on and running that blower to dissipate. And you will be aware that you have a leak in your system because it will notify.
Yeah, so currently a lot of homeowners, we've gotten this, and the EPA requires you to fix a leak after you've found one. If you come back another time and you continue to find the leak, you're required to fix it. But a lot of homeowners have opted to take a wait-and-see approach. They said, could you just fill it up and we'll wait and see what happens? On the new systems, because of the safety sensor that Todd has discussed, you won't be able to do that. The system will not operate correctly unless the leak is repaired.
So I guess the next big question regarding this A2L is, we've already been asked this question, is their current system going to be compatible? Meaning, can they change seals or just put this new A2L into an existing 410A? And there's not a whole lot of talk about it yet, but just like R22 to 410, my guess is going to be no, that you cannot do that.
I would think the same thing. The new refrigerant, obviously we talked about how the safety switches. So if you were trying to retrofit an old unit with those, you would then have to install the numerous safety switches that are going to come for the new refrigerant. As you haven't discussed yet, Todd, but there's also reporting requirements regarding this because it is a flammable material. When we install it, we have different reporting and requirements that we had to do on the new units that we never had to do before. So if you're retrofitting a unit, I don't know if you'd be able to do all those reporting requirements.
Yeah, exactly. So back to the reporting requirements. So it's our understanding as of right now, you have to do a final weigh out and post a sticker on that condensing unit or package unit, whatever it is, something related to the fire department. So you install the system and it has what it comes with the factory charge, but you also have to write down and place a sticker on it and let them know how many pounds of that refrigerant is in the system. So that's kind of where we're at today with the information that I have. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more as we get closer and closer to the equipment coming out. So there's still a lot of unknowns with this new refrigerant. We do know at this point that install procedures are going to be a little different. They don't want you brazing next to the condensing unit. Sounds like they're going to be moving to press fittings or push to connect fittings.
So what this means for most of our consumers, what Todd's saying is new rules mean more money. That's basically what we come down to. We have the tools and the technology to already follow all the procedures that they're rolling out, but they're more expensive than the current methods of doing stuff. The equipment will be more expensive. It's going to have built-in sensors. The installation will be more expensive because it requires different pieces, different parts, and a different process. Everything about the new rollout will be more expensive than the current generation.
Yeah, and money's a big thing. So, just like with any new equipment, my personal opinion is this, and I don't know if I should be saying it or not, but if it was me and I knew I was needing a new system, I would seriously consider, buying buying the current R410A system, which we know is tried and true, just like any new equipment, new refrigerants.
We did this before, right? With R22, they said it was ready to roll out. The new 410A systems were ready to roll out. In the first couple of years, we had more warranty claims than ever. Everything broke, everything leaked, nothing was designed right, even though they said they were ready. I'm with Todd on this. I think it's the same problem. The old adage, right? You buy the last model year of a car, not the first.
Exactly. That's my point. So to all the listeners out there, if you know and you're listening to this, if you know you need a system or your system's old and you're unsure about it, I would seriously consider buying now with something tried and true versus, taking a risk with this new refrigerant, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of kinks to work through and, other complications that may arise.
Yeah, and even if they roll it out and it works perfectly, as we learned from the past, anytime there's new regulatory change, there's usually a quite substantial price increase.
That is correct.
The regulations regarding A2L refrigerants still have a little bit of development to do, so if you want more information, do not hesitate to contact your local trusted trade pro.
Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard or learned something new, be sure you subscribe and listen to our podcast.
Got a good question you want us to cover? Get in touch, and we may feature your question in a future episode. Check out the show notes for our contact details.
As always, thank you to Done Right Services for sponsoring this podcast.